Hi peeps, welcome to the next installment in the Q&A series. This series has been so much fun and I'm more than happy to keep this series ongoing. And so if you want to continue to leave me questions in the comment section on videos, please feel free to. Also, if you want to hit me up on Insta and leave me questions there, I'm happy to write them down and put them on my list to answer. I do have lots of questions, so if I don't get to yours, I'm not being mean. I still have a ton of questions. Even today, I won't be anywhere near finishing the amount that I've received. So let's get right into it. In a recent video, one of you asked me, what was it like working with Jim Morrison? Which I was like, oh my gosh, that was from so long ago. That was like a really pivotal time in my life. And working with him as a spirit guide through that process for me, which was getting divorced, finding my own footing on my own kind of thing. He was really, really powerful for that. And he still comes to visit me sometimes. I read for a few clients who have some loved ones who've passed who really loved the Doors music. So I still get to chat with him when I channel in readings occasionally, and that's a really special thing. What was it like working with him? I think he really channeled, he was a Sagittarius, right? And I think he really channeled the energy of the questioning God, and I think he channeled Loki energy as well. You could say he was definitely working with the energy of the devil for sure. And you can see the shadow side that overtook him there with that. But I do think that there's an important purpose with questioning. And I certainly found in my energetic connection with him as I was walking through my own process that he really helped me to continue to question and to start to believe in myself more and believe in what I was prompted to do more. So that was very important for me to connect with him in that way. And it's interesting that this question was asked because I just purchased a book of his collected poetry and lyrics, and I was thinking about him the other day. So yeah, it was really, really poignant and very special, and he really did walk with me. I think he had a vulnerability as well. So I should just say really quickly that if you're someone who does feel like you're working with a famous energy who's passed, a famous for our culture energy who's passed, there's a couple ways that you can look at this. You can look at it as you're connecting with that energy, that actual individual, their soul's energy, and that they're coming through as a guide for you on your path. They might be coming through as a muse for you if you're working creatively. The other thing is that you can look at them as an energy that you're choosing to call in, which is an aspect of the divine. Right? So much like you have this choice with deity, when you work with deity, you have a choice of how you're going to interact with that. Do you see them as an actual individual, or do you see them as an aspect of yourself, or an aspect of source, or an aspect of the divine that you're connecting with? So you always have that choice, and you also get to change your mind about that. So don't feel like you have to believe one way or the other and you can't explore other options. But for me, it was very healing. A lot of questions, but also I really felt like he came through in the dark and held my hand in general in a time when I really needed to use my voice. I actually needed to find my voice first, personally for myself, not as a psychic medium, but as Racine. Okay, so cleansing rituals. Someone had asked, like, could you talk about the cleansing rituals you use in your home after readings and sessions? So I really think that cleansing and clearing is extremely important. So if you're someone who's also doing readings or energy work or doing some type of spiritual work out of your home or your personal space with other clients, if you're working with people outside of, family members that live in the house, etc., and even then you still should too, cleansing and clearing is really, really important. One of the first kind of foundational things I was taught by my shamanic teachers back in the day, when I was first starting to realize I was going to be doing this for work. A lot of people will attend those type of trainings, and some people think that they might, some people want to, but then there are some of us that have a realization like, oh, I'm actually going to be walking this path. And my teacher at the time, one of my teachers at the time, took me aside and said, this is going to be what you're doing. And so you really need to get clear on cleansing and clearing, because it's actually a really big deal. And so if you don't want to hit burnout as a reader or a medium or a healer or a teacher, you have to work with cleansing and clearing. So I really can't reiterate that enough. It's very, very important. I like to use sage or Palo Santo to clear the space before and after a reading. I always reset my deck to 0 between clients. You will not see me not touch every card in my deck and clear the cards between a reading. Even if I'm reading a party or a group of people and I know I'm going to read 8 people in an hour span, doesn't matter. I still clear the deck in between. It's very important to me to reset to 0 so that I'm clear about whose energy I'm picking up on. Now, if physical people are coming into your space, if people are coming into your physical space, or if you're doing readings online, that's still energetically someone coming into your space and you entering someone else's space. The clearing is very important before and after. So I will sage or use Palo Santo or Blue Nag Champa, which I love. I know some of you don't love it the way I do, but I find Blue Nag Champa to be actually it's very much a reset for me. Like my energy, it resets me to 0, and it helps me be able to be really clear about what I'm doing and not carry the energy of the client I was working with or that conversation that I have with that client throughout the day in my home. So what I will do is sage my workspace, use Palo Santo in my workspace, or Blue Nag Champa. I just like smoke. I feel like it does something really magical and cool. So you don't have to use smoke. Use whatever element feels right for you. That element of air feels very clearing in the energetic plane to me. So I'll work in spiral shapes, and I have some symbols that I will draw. I'm not going to show those symbols because those are private to me. But if you want to work with symbols, all you have to do is a simple Google search. That will get you started on some symbols. You can read books like Christopher Penzak's Inner Temple of Witchcraft. You'll find some symbols there. You want to work with something that when you draw it feels really good and intentional. So I will work in spiral formation with my smoke. I will draw symbols that release and recharge. And then I also do something called toning. This is a shamanic practice, and it's where you use the voice. It's not singing. You're using the vocal cords and the voice to like clear frequency. And that's very, very helpful for me, especially for my body in between clients. If you do not clear regularly, you will find that you feel exhausted, depressed, anxious. You might not be able to get out of a funk and you don't know why. And for me, I get super, super tired, and just like moving through the day becomes really difficult. And that's my sign that I need to re-clear, that something has attached again, either from a client in a reading, from energies that are associated with them, or something that walked over the ley lines around my house into my energetic space and wants to hang out. So clearing is essential. So like I said, I'll use smoke, I use symbols and sigils, I will tone, and then I will also say out loud, because I work with Ices, I typically say in Ices' name that the space is cleared, that my energy is cleared, that my decks are cleared, and then I do reset my deck to 0 between each and every read. And this is very important for me because I do so many readings. And how I do that, I've demonstrated that in previous videos, so I'm not going to show you in this one, but I'll just go over it really quick. I like to work in odd numbers, so I do piles of 5 or 7, and I touch every single card, and it goes in the pile, goes in the 5, every card goes in the 5 piles. Then once I've touched every single card and reset in the piles, I put the deck together, I shuffle, I draw a specific set of symbols over the deck to release. I knock 3 times, I draw a specific set of symbols over the deck to empower. I knock 3 times. Then I'm reset to 0 and I can go about with my readings. But I can't stress to you enough, just like you need to keep your house clean, your space clean, your clothes clean in order to be, working at full potential, in order to get shit done, you have to energetically clear. Even if you don't read for other people, energetic clearing is important, but especially if you're reading for other people, you've got to reset, or your empath ability, because if you're reading, you're an empath. Your empath and psychic ability can allow you to become attached energetically and carry that around. And as much as, you know, I come up with against this all the time in the spiritual community, kind of more locally than online, but you will hear this: if you're working in light with good intention, you don't need to clear. And I really disagree with that. And if you actually do this work full time and you don't want to hit burnout around 5 years in, then you've got to be intentional, and you need a regular cleansing practice, a regular clearing practice. So it's important, it matters. I can't really reiterate that enough. And for me, working with smoke, the element of air to clear, very important. So like I said, I sage and work in a spiral motion with my sage, my Palo Santo, or my blue nog, depending on what feels important. I'll do it over my workspace. This is my workspace, so I'm showing that. I'll do it in a spiral motion over my body and then throughout the home. If you're working out of your house, you've also got to sage and clear the home, because things will hang out in the space. And if you have another psychically open individual living in the house, like I do with my 9-year-old son, they will be affected by it as well. So really good energetic clearing. You also want to have good energetic protection built up around your space. So I work with, it's almost like a holographic sacred symbols that I visualize over my home, over my reading room, over my son's room, and over the altars, and then over the property as a whole, making sure that what's going on energetically in the space I'm aware of, and also it's a little bit of a deterrent from something that I don't want energetically in my home hanging out. And if you do have clients, you know that there are some clients who are going through difficult times that will kind of want to glom onto you energetically and form a cord of attachment. And it's really important to be super clear with not allowing that to continue. It creates a really murky energy that's not healthy as a reader if you allow that kind of codependency to exist with a client energetically. So those are my thoughts. I could talk about this for hours. I think it's really important. I don't think it's addressed enough in the community. And I have seen countless readers and healers over the years hit complete burnout and walk away from their work because it's so exhausting. And a large part of that is because we often want to think that this energy thing isn't really real, and it actually is. So I digress. Let me go back here. Next question that I received: do I suffer from imposter syndrome? I thought this was a really interesting question, and I kind of sat with it. It's been on my list, but I wanted to sit with, do I suffer from imposter syndrome? And I have to say, and I think that this is because of how I was raised. In the cult that I grew up in, you're very much taught to see that like you don't matter and it's about God, right? So, and I'm not saying this in a negative way. That experience was negative. But what helped me with that to see that like when I'm doing the work, which for me has manifested in readings and sessions and workshops and holding a space as a priestess and a psychic medium, when I'm in that space, I'm very aware that it doesn't have anything to do with me. I am not like making that happen. So from my childhood and then from the trainings that I had the great luck and fortune to engage in early on when I started doing my work, where it was very extensive, it was very hardcore, and you became very aware that what you were doing actually wasn't coming from this. Like I can't consciously make what happens in a session happen. It just happens. So all that I can do is be a vessel. And how do I best be a vessel? Take care of myself physically, spiritually, and emotionally. Stay connected to my guides so that I can channel correctly. But I can't make anything happen. So I don't think imposter syndrome has like consciously come up for me because I'm very aware that it's not something that I'm creating and I can't manufacture this. So I don't feel a sense of like I have to perform a certain way, I guess, or like, am I just pretending? I don't feel that way because I wouldn't have survived my childhood without my guides and connecting with those energies to assist me. And so they've always been real to me. And what I have to do is stay connected to them. And as long as I do that, then I can do what I'm here for my community to do. And when you do look at things from a perspective of being a witch or a wise woman in the community, or from a shamanic perspective here, what people are actually paying you for is not your gift. They're giving, there's an exchange that happens so that you can do what you do full time, so that you don't also have to deal with work, etc. in this, and then also try to hold a very unique space in the community, if that makes sense. And when I say that, I don't mean that that work is less than. I just mean that what people are paying for is the time and the ability for you to be able to sit with them in space and not have to do all the other things as well, and therefore have limited time to be with them. So what I look at it as is, someone has purchased a reading with me. I don't have to perform for them. What we've exchanged is my ability to be able to show up 100%, totally about them and what they're going through and their guidance. And it has nothing to do with, am I giving a service the way that people want, that they're going to post a good review on. And even when it comes to the channel here, while I certainly try to honor and respect everyone's viewpoints, I don't feel a need to perform. I don't feel a sense of imposter syndrome, or like, is this real? Am I real? Is what I'm doing real? Because every time that I've just worked in alliance and in alignment with guidance, things have always worked out. And so as long as this is helpful and this feels right to do in my role for my community, then I will continue to do that. And when it doesn't feel right, or when it's very clear that it's reached at the end of its organic life, then I will release that. So I don't feel a sense of imposter syndrome because it's not really about me. It doesn't have, like, the work is about saying yes and showing up and doing the work. And it's about connecting, and it's about full presence. It's not about an ego trip for me or creating an experience that I think is going to get a 5-star rating from a client. Again, the trainings that I had when I was starting this journey were very helpful in being in really clarifying, like, get the fuck out of your own way. This has nothing to do with you. And that was actually very, very helpful for me. So I hope that answers that. I can't really speak to imposter syndrome because it's not something that I feel like I experience. And again, it's because it's not, my work isn't about me, it's about doing the work. And it's also about, I feel so grateful to do what I do, to get to do what I do. And it's just about, I'm so often, at least once to 5 times a day, just overwhelmed with gratitude for the beautiful life that I get to experience. Like, I actually get, like, part of my job is my spiritual path. My job is my spiritual path in many ways. And that's really, really, oh my God, it's such a gift. And I'm so fucking grateful for that. And so that's more the space I stay in for my work. Just gratitude and showing up. Like, I don't have to, it's not about performance, I guess. So I don't deal with imposter syndrome, but I thought this was a really good question. And I wonder what other people in the community have to say about that as well. So that would be interesting. I'll have to do, in my limited free time, do a little research and see if anyone else has answered this question. But thank you for that question. It was very thought-provoking. I really sat with it for a little while before I addressed it. And I hope I've explained clearly, especially this piece about the monetary exchange that happens in my work. It's, that is very important. It requires a great amount of energy and presence to do this work. And so when that exchange happens, everybody values it, but also it allows me to be able to show up fully because I'm also not having to juggle, other work, other, other physically draining things that need to get done. Because this is my full-time job, this is all I need to focus on. And that makes a huge difference in the value of the work. I hope that that makes sense. And I'm happy to clarify that further if somebody has more questions on that. Let's see, I'm already at 20 minutes. I'll answer this one really quickly. How do I handle ancestral work with my painful family history? That's how I kind of did a shorthand version of the question that this viewer asked. I believe the viewer was saying, like, with what's happened in your childhood affecting your psyche, how do you approach ancestral work? I think for me, ancestral work became even more important because of the experience that I had in my childhood. And what I found was essential was not just to blame my parents, but in meditative work with my guides, to actually find like the cord, the thread that ran from my parents to their parents, my grandparents, and back farther and farther in the line. And to see where a seed of shame was planted, and to see where fear manifested, and especially from the matrilineal side of my family, to see where there was something sown about an experience of the feminine being dangerous and lesser, and to go back through the family lines, working energetically with my guides, and to witness that through journeying has been very, very healing for me. And then to be able to do forgiveness practice around, now that I can see where this happened in the line, in the thread. I can see the thread that ran through the family line here, all the way back to the beginning. Which my grandmother on my mother's side, we have a lot of Scandinavian blood, and she had actually traced our family. This was before online. My grandmother has passed. She would be in her late 80s if she, late 80s if she was alive now. So this was before the internet. She wasn't on the internet researching shit. She did this herself. She had traced our family line back to Leif Erikson. So, and I actually have that documentation. So my grandmother actually did some of this work for me. She traced our line all the way back to what she found, to be the oldest she could find in the beginning. So that was very helpful for visualization for me. But it's also been helpful to see how far it goes back, and what my life, my little journey in this DNA thread is about harmonizing and integrating and healing around the sacred feminine, especially, and being a woman and being female in form. So that's actually been essential for me. I think ancestral work became even more important for me because of that. And I did feel scared to start that when I was feeling that call. So this is a really great question. I didn't really want to go into all this. It's a lot easier to just ignore this and wear red lipstick and feel good. But this type of work is really where the magic happens. And it's where you come out the other side really having allowed an evolution to occur. And when you do ancestral work, you're not just doing it for yourself, you're doing it for the entire family line. So especially in this example, to go back matrilineally and do this reweaving of a story, I know affects not only my little part of this thread, but also affects everyone that came before me and everyone that will come after me in this DNA line. And not only that, it affects my son's evolution as well. So it's essential. I think if you've dealt with severe trauma in your childhood, it also helps you to understand why what happened the way that it did. And that is very healing in and of itself. And then when it feels right, and only when it feels right, you can step into forgiveness work around this. But how I've handled it is to be hardcore with it, like I do with most things, when I was ready. And I felt that call about 2 years ago to really start ancestral work in especially my matrilineal line. I'm still working with my patrilineal line. My dynamic with my father, very different than my dynamic with my mother. But this has been deeply healing for me, and it's ongoing. So I would say if you're someone who's dealt with severe trauma in childhood like I have, this is something that can be really impactful. It's very freeing and it's very healing. And again, it heals across time and space. So it is something that I recommend when you feel ready. It will be traumatizing to step into it if you're not ready yet. You need to be in a clear space, and you need to feel empowered isn't the right word, but you need to feel grounded when you do it. You don't want to be in distress when you do ancestral work. So those are my answers to some of your questions in installment 6. It's been such a joy to get to sit with you and chat for a little bit. I hope you're all doing well out there in the world. As you know, I am sending you much love and many blessings, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.